إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. فالكلامنا اليوم في العيوب المانعة من الإجزاء. Then our speech for today is regarding those defects which prevent the sacrificial animal from being accepted or sufficing for the person who is obligated to sacrifice. عن البراء بن عازب رضي الله عنه قال قام فينا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال. So Al-Bara ibn Azib radiallahu anhu, he said that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam stood amongst us and he said, أربعون لا تجوز في الأضاحي وفي رواية لا تجزي. There are four animals that do not or that are not acceptable for the sacrifice, or they do not suffice. Al-awra al-bayyinu awruha, the animal which is one-eyed, it's blind in one eye, and it's clear that it's blind in one eye. And the Shaykh is going to explain all of this, inshallah. Wal-maridatu al-bayyinu maraduha, the sick animal which is, its sickness is clear. Wal-arja al-bayinu dhala'uha, and the lame animal, or the one that has a limp and it's clear that it is limping or lame. Wal-kasiratu allati la tunqi, and there are a number of explanations when you look into the books of hadith or the books of shuruh, but the Shaykh has chosen the emaciated animal which doesn't have any marrow in its bones. Extremely skinny, no marrow in its bones. أخرجه أصحاب السنن وأحمد وقال الترمذي حديث حسن صحيح. This hadith was narrated by the companions of the Sunan, Abu Dawood, At-Tirmidhi, and Nasai, and Ibn Majah, as well as Imam Ahmed. And At-Tirmidhi said that it is a Hasan Sahih hadith. The Shaykh Abdullah Fawzan, Hafidhullah, he says, Al-Hadithu dalilun ala anna hadhihi anwa' al-arba la tajuzu at-tadhiya biha. This hadith is evidence that it is not permissible for these four types of animals to be considered a sacrifice. لِوُجُودِ الْعُيُوبِ الْمَانِعَةِ مِنَ الْإِجْزَاءِ, due to the defects that are in them which prevent them from sufficing. وَيُقَاسَ عَلَيْهَا غَيْرُهَا مِمَّا هُوَ أَشَدُّ مِنْهَا أَوْ مُسَاوٍ لَهَا. And we can make an analogy for animals that might have a more severe defect or a similar on the same level of defect. لأن الشريعة لا تفرق بين متماثلين ولا تجمع بين متفرقين. Because the Islamic legislation does not separate between things which are alike, nor does it bring together those things which are different. After this, the Shaykh, he goes into the defects in detail. Al-ula, the first of them, al-awra al-bayinu awruha, the one-eyed animal, it's blind in one eye, and it's clear that it's blind in one eye. وَهِيَ الَّتِي إِنْ خَسَفَتْ عَيْنُهَا أَوْ بَرَزَتْ, it's the animal which its eye is either sunken in or it's protruding. And we may have seen this before. When we go, we see the eye sticking out or it's sunk in. It's clear that this animal is blind. فَإِنْ كَانَ عَلَى عَيْنِهَا بَيَاض وَلَمْ تَذْهَبْ جَازَتْ التَّضْحِيَةُ بِهَا. But if it's something white over its eye, it's not protruding, it's not sunken in, but it has like a glaze over its eye, and that white glaze doesn't go away, then this animal, it's permissible to slaughter it. لأن عورها غير بين, because its blindness is not clear. ويلحق بالعوراء العمياء, and equivalent or meeting with the one-eyed animal is the animal is blind in two eyes. It's blind in both eyes, right? Min bab al-awla. Then this is even more considered. There's more to take into consideration. If it's blind in one eye and it's not permissible, if it's blind in two eyes, it's definitely not permissible. فَإِنَّهَا لَا تُجْزِي وَإِن لَمْ تَنْخَسِفْ عَيْنُهَا. Then this animal, if it's blind in both eyes, it is not accepted, even if its eyes are not protruding or sunken in. لأن الأعمى يمنع مشيها مع رفيقتها ويمنعها من المشاركة في العلف. Because the blind animal, it doesn't participate with the other animals. When the animals are pushed one way, that animal doesn't know how to follow. It can't keep up with the other animals in the herd, and it's not able to participate in eating with them. Athania, the second animal, the second description or the aib that he mentioned, al-maridatul bayyinul maraduha. The sick one and its sickness is obvious. وهي التي ظهرت عليها آثار المرض بأن تكون غير نشيطة ولا تأكل. This is the animal which is clear that it has the effects of sickness such that it has no energy and is not eating. You see all the other animals, anytime a noise comes, someone comes near the fence, they all run in the corner. This animal just lays there on the side. The person in charge of the animals comes out and gives them the corn or whatever they give them, and they all rush to it, except this animal, he just lays where he's at. It's clear this animal is sick, and we don't slaughter this animal. مما يكون سببا في حزالها. Maybe this is a reason for its emaciation, it's being very skinny, which leads to the fourth category. ومن ذلك الجرب. And from that, جزاكم الله خيرا, is the animal that has mange. The animal that has these scabs all over it, its hair is falling out, has scabs. This mange, this jarab, لأنه يفسد اللحم والشحم. Because this sickness will spoil the meat and the fat. وَرُبَّمَا تَضَرُّرُ مَنْ يَأْكُلُهَا. And maybe it will cause harm to the one who eats it. The third category, al-arja al-baynu dhaluha, the animal which is lame and it's clear that it has some type of crippledness or lameness in it. Arjuha wa al-dhala'u. He gets into some linguistic terms here, so I'm trying to skip them. They're just how to pronounce the words, right? Wal-dhala'u huwa al-ghams. والأرجاء هي التي تغمز في يدها أو رجلها إذا مشت خلقة أو لعلة طارئة. So this is the animal that has a limp, and it maybe draws up its leg like this, and when it's time to walk with the other animals, or like I said, some noise or something comes, it limps and it maybe picks up its leg. And you can tell obviously that if it steps on it, it hurts, or it can't step on it, then this animal is not permissible to slaughter it. وَالْبَيِّنْ عَرْجُهَا هِيَ الَّتِي تَتَخَلَّفْ عَنَ الْقَطِيعِ. And what makes it clear that this animal has a lameness is that when all the animals move, he's not able to keep up with it. He stays behind and he's not able to keep up with the herd. وَيَلْحَقُ أو يلحق ويلحق بها الزمنة وهي العاجزة عن المشي لآها. I'm going to rely on my translation here. The animal that is chronically ill and is unable to walk because of a defect or a sickness is included in this category. So the animal that's always sick, right, or has some type of chronic illness, then this animal is included. لأنها أولى بعدم الإجزاء من الأرجاء البين ذلها. That animal which is chronically ill, right, then it is more deserving to not be included than the one who has just a limp. وكذا مقطوع إحدى اليدين أو رجلين. Likewise, one animal that is missing a foot, an arm or a leg. They call it arm or leg, just like us. If one of its legs is cut off, stumped, or all the way, then it's even more so that this animal is not to be sacrificed. And as he's going to explain later on, this is because it takes from the intended meat and the intended slaughter that we want to give to Allah. We want to give to Allah a whole animal, even though the lahm minna dam doesn't reach Allah. It's the taqwa from us that reaches Him. But we're doing this for Allah Azza wa Jal, and we want to do it with a whole, complete, salim animal. لأنها, the one that has its leg cut or its hand cut, لأنها أولى من الأرجاء, because this is even more deserving to not be slaughtered than the one that just has a limp. وَلِأَنَّهَا نَاقِصٌ فِي عَدْوُ الْمَقْصُودِ, because it is missing some of the body parts that is intended by the slaughter. الرابع. So the first one, just to review real quickly, the first one is awra, one-eyed, blind in one eye. The second one, marid, marida. Third, arja, limping like this. The fourth one, al-kasiratu allati la tunqi, the one that is emaciated, extremely skinny and deprived, where it has no marrow in its bones. When I looked this up at first, before I got to the end of the paragraph, I saw that the shurah, the people of tafsir and explanation of hadith, gave many different meanings for this. But the sheikh has chosen this one. It is very, very skinny until there's no marrow in the bones. Ay la niqya laha, no marrow inside. Wa niqyu huwa al-mukh, ay la allati la mukh fiha li da'fiha, has no marrow in its bones due to its weakness. فَتَكُونُ غَالِبًا غَيْرُ طِيبَةِ اللَّحْمِ. So most of the time this animal is not going to have good meat. فَإِنْ كَانَ الْعَيْبِ يَسِيرًا فَهُوَ مَعْفُونَ عَنْهُ. And if the defect is slight, then it's forgiven and passed over. You can still slaughter this animal. كما لو كان في عينها نقطة يسيرة. If there's something small in the eye, it's protruding a little bit, sunken a little bit, it's not clear. Maybe it's got a lazy eye, right? That when this one looks, this one's slow to follow, or something like this. This is permissible. It's not blind. It's not clear. أو كان العرج يسيرا لا يؤدي بها إلى القعود عن القطيع فإنها تجزي. Or the lame animal, it has a limp, but when the animals run, it keeps up with the other animals. It's limping, but it's keeping up with the other animals. It's not affecting it from being around the other animals, therefore it's permissible. وكذا المهزول التي ليست غاية في الحزام. Likewise, the animal that's skinny, but it's not so skinny that it becomes emaciated, no bone marrow like this. A skinny animal, no problem. It doesn't have to be fat. I want the biggest, fattest one, and I put the only skinny ones left. Skinny, no problem. Only skinny becomes a problem when it becomes sickly. Then the Shaykh, he says, وَقَدْ دَلَ الْحَدِيث بِمَفْهُومِهِ عَلَى أَنَّ مَا عَادَ الْعُيُوبَ الْأَرْبَعَ وَمَا فِي مَعْنَاهَا لَا كَانَ يَمْنُ الْإِجْزَاءِ. He says this hadith shows us by the understanding of it. It's not explicit. By what we understand from it is that what is besides these four defects and what has their meanings, right? Like not just arja, ama, that's included in it, right? Then these are not prohibited. Other defects are not prohibited. Only these four. وَذَلِكَ لِأَنَّ الْحَدِيث خَرَجَ مَخْرَجَ الْبَيَانِ وَالْحَصْرِ. That's because the hadith came in a way of clarifying a matter and also limiting that matter. وَلِأَنَّهُ جَوَابُ سُؤَالٍ. And if you go back to look at the hadith in its entirety and the story of the hadith, you'll find that this is an answer to a question that was asked to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَالظَّاهِرْ أَنَّهُ كَانَ حَالَ خُطْبَةٍ وَإِعْلَانٍ. And it's apparent that he stood up and he gave an address to the people and he announced it to them. لقول البراء قام فينا. He stood up amongst us. ولو كان غير الأربع مانعا من الإجزاء. And if other than these four were prohibited from sufficing, للازم ذكره. It would have been necessary to mention them. لأن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يؤخر البيان عن وقت الحاجة. Because the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم does not delay the clarification at the time of need. So we asked Jamal something, and then he gives us half an answer in front of everybody. And then later on, he holds us accountable for the whole answer. Nah, you only said half the answer, Sheikh. What are we going to do? You can't hold us accountable. So the Prophet ﷺ, when he would answer, he had to give a whole answer. وَلَا يَضُرُّ الْكَيْء. And it does not harm that the animal has been branded. it has the symbol of Beit Hassan on it, right? This is here, right? وَلَا شَقُّ الْأُذُنِ, nor if the udhun has been cut, if the ear has been cut, right? وَلَا خَرْقُهَا, nor if it's been pierced. Sometimes they put a tag in the ear. Doesn't harm it. وَلَا كَسْرُ الْقَرْنِ, nor if the horns have been broken. If the horns are broken. لِأَنَّ ذَلِكَ لَا يَنْقُصْ لَحْمَهَا, because that does not take away from its meat, and the meat is what is intended. وَلِأَنَّهُ يُكْثِرُ وُجُودَهُ, and because this is something that's going to take place all the time. Their ears are going to be cut, the piercing is going to be there, people are going to brand them, the horns are going to break when they fight each other. It's going to happen all the time, so it's going to be present. وَلَكِنْ السَّلِيمَ مِنْ ذَلِكَ أَوْلَى, but something that is safe and free from not safe, but free from these things is better and more preferable. If you can get an animal without an ear, with ear pierced, without his ear cut, without his horn broken, it's better. وَلَا تَجُوزُ التَّضْحِيَةُ بِمَقْطُوعِ الْآلِيَةِ. This is something over here we don't have to worry about. This is a part over here we don't have to worry about. If the tail has been cut, it's not permissible to slaughter that animal, right? لِأَنَّ ذَلِكَ نَقْصٌ بَيٌّ فِي جُزْءٍ مَقْصُودٍ, because that is a clear and apparent shortcoming or deficiency, something missing in the part of the animal that is intended by the slaughter, the meat and the fat. But we don't have this animal here, right? As he says, وَأَمَّا إِذَا كَانَتْ مِن نَوْعٍ لَا أَلْيَةَ لَهُ بِالْأَصْلِ الْخِلْقَةِ فَإِنَّهَا تُجْزِي. But if it's the kind of sheep or the animal that doesn't have a tail to begin with, it's not created with the tail, then no problem, you can slaughter that animal. So those who have been overseas and seen the fat-tailed animals, the Arab sheeps, their tails are this wide, this thick, and this long. It hangs down sometimes to the ground, or right, sometimes to the ground, sometimes a little up. And it's like this. It might weigh 10, 15, 20 pounds.
We call this Leia. We call this Leia.
نعم ألية هذا هو في العربية. So the same لهجة فقط. So this tail is important. It's fat, and when they cook it and put it on there, you want to eat from it, even if you don't eat fat. It's delicious. And if you were to if you have this sciatic nerve, for Dr. Tariq here, people have this sciatic nerve from their lower back or hip down to their foot, right, where it hurts them really badly. If they take this fat from this meat and they eat like a fingertip every day, they boil it like in some tea or water, make it down to some tea or water or something, and drink it 3 days in a row, sciatica nerve goes away. Hadith Sahih in the Ibn Majah, rahimahullah ta'ala. So this tail, we want this tail if we have it. But our sheep and goats, they're going to be miskeen with a little thing like my thumb. MashaAllah. Allahumma a'idna min asbab al-mukhalafa wal-isyan. O Allah, give us refuge from the ways of opposing you and disobeying you. Warzuqna tahqiq al-iman ala wajh alladhi yurdika anna. And bless us by making us realize and actualize iman in the way that is pleasing to you. Waghfir lana ma qadimna wa ma akharna, ma qadamna wa ma akharna, and forgive us for what we put forth and what we will still do. Wa ma asrarna wa ma a'lanna, and what we did privately and what we did openly. Wa ma anta a'lamu bihi minna, and what you're more knowledgeable about than us. Waghfir lahumma lana, and O Allah, forgive us, wali walidina, and our parents, wali jameel muslimin, and all of the Muslims. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.